everyone, my name is Jenny Kelly and welcome to Behind the Ball. I am delighted to say that I am joined by former Kerry GEA, former UL Huskies and recently Ireland Rugby Sevens player Louise Galvin.
Averaging 23 points per game and an awful lot of rebounds too. Nigh on a dozen, 11.3. Great score, Louise Galvin, 2 for her.
How are you doing, Louise?
Good, thanks for having me, Jenny.
Good. Have you done many of these quick fire rounds before?
I don't think I actually have done many of this type of kind of podcast, but best of luck because I don't tend to be too quick with my answers. They tend to go on and on.
All right, we'll get started. So, who are 3 sports stars you would love to have over for dinner and why?
Jordan. I think after the documentary, The Last Dance, just really intrigued by him, his character, his will to win, and it was just the way it was all set up. I know it's about the Bulls, but it was really all about Jordan. And yeah, just a really intriguing character. So maybe not in a one-on-one, but that kind of situation of a dinner party, wouldn't mind seeing a bit more of that. During lockdown as well, the last lockdown, I read Andre Agassi's autobiography, which was pretty class. I really recommend it. So I'd bring him along because he's had a pretty colour career and just really interesting listening to him talk about like all his battles and hating tennis so much and then sticking with it for so long. And as well, I like the idea of, team sport athletes, individual athletes and the different kind of backgrounds or psychologies between them all. And then back to my rugby roots, I think someone like Richie McCaw would be pretty cool from the All Blacks, another real winner, kind of a guy who wins at all costs. And I think the three of them be 3 pretty dominant personalities inside the room. I might just sit back and see how a conversation unfolds.
Please record that. That'd be a decent dinner table. And I read somewhere that you'd be a fan of surf and turf. Would that be the meal you'd go for with the 3 of them?
Definitely a fan of surf and turf, maybe not my surf and turf now. Depends if you get a nice bit of beef and a few scallops and prawns thrown in, but I'd be a bit nervous about getting the beef cooked correctly for them. I might outsource that one, but I think it's a good meal choice. All right, Jenny.
I think so. All right. Who was your role model growing up and why, Louise?
My role model growing up was probably Seamus Moynihan, Kerry footballer. Which kind of makes me a bit sad, nothing against Seamus, but I wish I'd probably had more visible females that I could relate to or try and emulate. Like I remember I'd Sonia O'Sullivan growing up, but I knew it wasn't much of a runner, certainly not at her standard anyway. And the same, like probably Michelle Smith as well was the other real visible female athlete. So I wanted to play ball sports all my life. The most visible team to me growing up in Kerry is probably the Kerry footballers. And I love Seamus Moynihan because he was a real team player. He's very, very intelligent. He adapted in 2000, he moved back to fullback, which wouldn't have been his original position. And he ended up being, pretty much footballer of the year that year, if I remember correctly. He's only very, very young now in 2000. But yeah, because he was such a team player, such a smart player and would move to, basically he plugged a stop wherever he needed to go. He was my favourite Kerry player growing up and a real role model because Kerry is the most visible team to me.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're a role model to a lot of boys and girls out there, given your career as well, and in your sporting life and in your professional life. And you worked as a physiotherapist there in ICU during the pandemic. And I just wanted to ask you, how was that experience and what were kind of the lessons you learned from it? I'm sure your eyes were opened quite a bit.
Yeah, the experience, like in a real strange way, and I don't want to say you're taking enjoyment out of people suffering, but I really, really enjoyed the experience. I think a lot of us were thrust into this lockdown. I couldn't train or play with sevens anymore because of for the obvious reasons. And I know, speaking to some people, they just felt so helpless, like they couldn't do anything. So I thought, why not get back into this working capacity? I was always locuming away and had kept up my skills, so I was able to step back in and help in some way, shape or form, and just seeing so many patients there who are affected by COVID, and how they couldn't have any families in, they're really fighting for their lives. It just gave me a huge perspective as well, because I guess by the end of COVID I'd retired from the sevens and my own life took a bit of a sporting career took a bit of a different trajectory, but I just couldn't be sad for myself because it just made me realize how lucky I was, and all that I had achieved, and all the teams that I've been so grateful to play on, and that I had my health number one first and foremost, because our health is, at the end of the day, is the most important thing that we can have, and that our family are fit and healthy too.
It puts everything into perspective, really, doesn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah. And I mean, I know we're all missing out now big time, and look, when lockdown lifted and I got back playing a bit of club football, a bit of club rugby, I was in my element. I was traipsing up and down the country again, but I didn't care. And then feeling sorry for myself again that I'm back training on my own. But again, like, that perspective of looking back into that time, I can't complain. I'm absolutely fine, and I'll be back playing again in no time, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so too. Am I right in saying you won an intermediate championship recently?
Yeah, I was very lucky.
Very lucky.
My J club, Fenwick St. Senans, I hadn't fully left sevens or fully retired. I wasn't really sure what I was doing. So I said to the coach, can I play football? And, we're contracted. And he was kind of like, it's always injury risk or whatever. So he basically said no. He said, look, register for the season and see how you get on. So I registered just before kind of, I think it was the end of July or end of June. And then I was living in Dublin, and the club was down at home in Kerry. So basically I pretty much just made it back for the final, which was on Fitzgerald Stadium. The sun was beaming down. It was like the best. It was actually the best day of 2020 by far for me. I'm just remembering, did I get married in 2020? No, I got married in 2020. I got married. Close. Yeah, it was definitely the best day of 2020. From what I can remember, it was just phenomenal, and so lucky and so grateful to the club to have me back as well. And so delighted to see the club thrive, I have to say, because I mean, you mentioned there my background, obviously basketball has been a huge part of my development. But like when I was growing up, there was no ladies club. I had to play with the boys, and then I stopped playing from 14 to 21. And now with the ladies club set up, there's all underage teams. And I mean, for those underage girls to see a senior club within the team now playing senior club football next year, it's phenomenal. And seriously to all the volunteers, because they are all volunteering their time and their effort, who've made that happen, from players to management across my locality in Fenwick St. Senans. It's just been phenomenal, and I'm very much grateful to them for that.
Yeah, we owe a lot to the volunteers, I think, across all different sports in the world. You touched on Fitzgerald Stadium there, and that brings me on to my next question. What's your favourite arena that you played in across all sports? But I want to narrow it down to basketball then as well.
Yeah, well, in basketball, I can't look beyond the arena in UL. Got to train and play there with the Huskies for years on end, and obviously in college as well with the college team. And although we always wanted to get to Tala, and I have to give a special mention to the likes of Procreate Hall and Neptune, like Rachel mentioned last week as well. Just the UL Arena, I've always, as I was a kid and going down to hopefully go to university in the University of Limerick, which is what I wanted, I just remember walking in, seeing that big scoreboard, thinking it was the coolest place ever. So that was definitely my favourite basketball arena. And I always felt so lucky that it was my home ground to train and play in as well. Then getting to line out in Croke Park on All Ireland final day was obviously huge.
Field of Dreams.
That Field of Dreams, and like, again, going back to kind of role models and my real childhood dreams growing up, putting on Kerry jersey was always a huge ambition, and to do that in All Ireland final day was a massive dream come true. And I remember thinking that this is the worst and best day I've had in a football game, because we obviously lost to Cork in 2012, but I also was like walking around Croke Park in All Ireland final day going, pinch me, this is phenomenal. And then look, I've been so lucky to have played all around the world in incredible destinations with rugby. Generally all the pitches are phenomenal. If I was to talk about actual pitch surface here now, I've played in Japan a few years, in not even like one of them, not even in Tokyo. It was a place called Kitakayushu, and to say you'd eat your breakfast, dinner and lunch off the field, like, it was phenomenal. It's the most perfect pitch. And like after sevens, even in really good climate, the pitches can often get quite cut up because it's just constant games on it, especially if you have a men's and women's tournament. And like by the end of the last game, it would still be in perfect condition. So pitch surface, in Katakayushu in Japan was definitely the best. But overall venue, I'd have to say Croke Park, to be honest. It's just Field of Dreams.
Fair enough. And can I ask, how did you manage the heat? You had no problem while you're playing basketball and GA anyway with the heat in Ireland, but like with rugby, some of the heat in like Sydney and Dubai and San Fran, it must be crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. Even the last World Series tournament we played was in Sydney in February of this year, and we played in 40 degrees centigrade. Like, Jenny, it was incredible. It was like after 7 minutes, you're absolutely wiped of full contact sevens rugby. We actually ended up borrowing these ice jackets from the Giants, the Sydney Giants, that you know, some of the Irish girls, Yvonne Bonner and Cora Staunton and where Bree Stack, I believe, is going as well.
She is indeed.
Yeah, so I believe we borrowed some of these ice zip-up jackets that they use for these particularly hot days, and we wore them, even though they were an extra weight. We wore them warming up. We were putting them on over us at half time. But generally, look, we do play in heat, be a little bit less than that. Hydration is massive. You also burn more calories. So it's something like sevens, you have to make sure you're constantly refueling and staying on top of that. Ice baths straight after games. Like at half time, we'd have ice towels straight onto our neck. Like all the subs we were running out, putting them onto the players' necks. So you just take every opportunity you can to try and cool yourself down, and obviously stay out of the heat outside of pretty much warming up and playing in it. But that 40-degree heat in February was definitely the worst I've ever played in.
And would you train in the heat? This might be getting too far into it now, and sorry, but I'm just intrigued by it. Would you prepare for the heat, or just make sure your body is right?
Yeah, like I remember one of our S&C years ago, a first tournament of the year used to be in Dubai. It's now in America, but it's in Dubai, and it would be in December. So the fact that as well, it's so alien to, you know, a northern hemisphere winter. So we used to wear double skins on our training outside in the pitch at the back of Lansdowne and Lansdowne at the back of the Aviva, and then a wet top and a wet bottom. So she was trying to recreate that uncomfortable, sticky feeling. But the thing was, then everything was really bulky, so it was just hard to run and pass and tackle, whatever. So I didn't particularly enjoy that. I suppose you have to remember everyone else is probably it's suffering to a certain extent as well, but we absolutely would train in it, because you have to get used to it, much like you have to train in the rain in case that happens as well. I remember the year before last, we were really lucky. There was a heat wave in Australia all the way up to game day, and then the 2 game days, I think literally there was almost like a 15-degree drop in the temperature, and we woke up in the morning, and I've never been so happy to see cloud cover and even a threat of rain. We were like, our prayers are answered.
Oh God, no, it's brilliant. We touched on a couple of the places you've been to there. What was the proudest moment of your career to date?
Proudest. Really enjoyed the Sevens World Cup over in San Francisco in 2018. It was a huge kind of build up to that week. It was men's and women's Sevens World Cup were run together, a huge Irish contingent, had a lot of family over as well, as did a lot of players. And yeah, we did pretty well. We came sixth. Sixth in the world isn't bad at all. Although, to be honest, we lost our last ranking game. We should have been fifth, but I know you're never happy. So that was a pretty proud moment. As well, we reached our first World Series semi-final in Sydney in 2019. That weekend that I said the weather just dropped perfectly for us. That was a huge moment, and winning our group for the first time. And it was kind of a strange time for me, because I just lost my dad a month before, and I left like 2 or 3 weeks after the funeral, because we had a week training camp before the tournament, and it was all just very, very quick. But I remember just wanting to kind of thank my team and support them for the support they'd given me. So the tournament went well. I mightn't have been in the best, wasn't the best form at all outside of it, but it was the best that we'd ever performed. And I was just glad of my contribution to be able to stand up and do that, and maybe honour my dad a little bit as well so soon after he passed.
Absolutely. And I think those team environments, they really help you along, like they're family at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I remember our first day back training after Christmas, where we do fitness tests and everything was cancelled, and the whole squad are down in Kerry at a funeral. And I remember nearly being mad, like, we should be training, we're meant to be going, you're almost in this,
professionalism.
We're missing it, feeling guilty that the whole squad are missing a day training because of me and my family. But that's what it is. They wanted to be there, and I really wanted to pay them back then, and not just travel, but travel and perform. And I feel I contributed decently enough to that tournament as well, and thank them for that.
And speaking of travel, then with San Francisco, Dubai, Sydney, you've been a lot of places. Could you pick your favorite one, or is it too hard to say?
Well, yeah, there has been some awesome places in such a different ways. There, end of 2019, just before my wedding, actually, there was a tournament put on in Cape Town that I hadn't known about just when I planned the wedding. So or when we had planned it. So I was the week before my wedding, I was playing full contact rugby over in South Africa, which was a bit mad.
You're mental. You're absolutely mental.
Oh, I didn't really know we're in Dubai the week before. Like it sounds like I have a great life. It was really good, actually. God, I should really go back. But Cape Town is phenomenal because it was beautiful against December and it's like 30 degrees, but the people, they love their rugby. Like Dubai's a real party atmosphere, but everyone's just kind of there for the party, looks at the rugby, looks away and drinks again, whereas Cape Town's real party atmosphere at the tournament, but they love their rugby as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. I mean, we got to go out and see Robben Island or up Table Mountain, all these incredible places. They're so friendly in the hotel and they just love dancing, they love music. And look, it's very much an unsettled country, but what I could see was that there was a lot of unity around rugby and their sport. And I'm not saying it's going to solve everything. And I know there was a time that there wasn't, but certainly, you know, when they came to support the Blitzbox, which was what they call their 7 squad, they were a lot more unified doing that. So I think if sport can kind of traverse those kind of boundaries, it's not doing too bad. So it was nice to witness that in such an incredible place as well.
Amazing. There's a lot of players, a lot of boys and girls that are dual code players at the minute. We had Lindsay Peat on Bench Talk before, and she was speaking about how she juggled the different sports. Would you have any advice for boys and girls out there who, COVID aside right now, but when COVID lifts, they're playing GEA and soccer and rugby all at the one time? And what would you say to them?
I'd say keep doing it for as long as you can. Because listen, first of all, we know, like scientifically, there's plenty of studies to show that specializing in a young age doesn't actually result in a young person becoming an elite athlete in that sport. That actually that diversity between the different sports is shown to be much better for development, but as well for enjoyment. Like, you know, if you enjoy playing lots of different sports and if you can make it work and you're still, you know, doing your school books or doing whatever else you need to be doing, then keep at it. I think coaches should be learning and are learning, particularly maybe in small rural towns, you know, put trainings on different nights and try and work together. So for example, I always found, particularly with basketball and football, basketball was more of a winter sport, football was more of a summer sport, and like always have communication between your coaches that you might take. You don't need that extra maybe fitness session, or you can take one session off a week for one or either of the sports to make sure you're not at risk of an injury or burnout. But that they should complement each other, because at the end of the day, you're working on your hand-eye coordination, you're working on your ability to evade someone, you're working on your ability to work in different spaces and within a team, and there's just so many transferable skills. And you're also enjoying it. So there's no need to be specializing at a young age. So I would like to tell, you know, coaches, don't put pressure on kids or teenagers to do that. And the kids and teenagers, if once you're enjoying it, keep doing it for as long as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you what would be the one transferable skill between GAA rugby and soccer. Did you kind of answer that there, I think?
Yeah,
I know you've been asked this question so many times.
I know, and I'll probably change my answers. Because actually I heard, I was listening to an interview with Arsene Wenger, and he was saying, you know, someone asked him what he saw, what he looked for in a young player that told him they're going to make it to the top, and he kind of said, look at elite level, players will all be very good at most things, but someone has to have a point of difference. So there be that they can read a game really well, or that they have incredible pace, or they're able to step people, or physicality. So I think, you know, people just having that one point of difference can be is important. Like he said, it kind of made me think. But to be honest, the one real transferable skill that you cannot do without, because you can probably do without, not do without, but you can manage, you know, you could argue that you can manage that some skills being at a very, very high level, but you cannot do without a good attitude. And that is going to take you across rugby, football, basketball, any other sport you want to name. A classroom is going to take you out of life and into a job.
In general, yeah.
So look, that ability to work with people, to take criticism on the chin, to be intrinsically motivated enough to look at your own weaknesses and try and work on them, to be responsible, and to have a laugh and kind of lighten up as well, and also to be resilient, because nothing's going to be smooth and plain sailing. So I think that can all be wrapped up in one word, and that's kind of your attitude.
Do you have a motto that you live by, Louise? And what is it, if we can know?
I don't have one motto, and I know it's well, this one's used an awful lot, but I do believe that, like, you know, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And I look at that as a kind of a double-pronged sport, or, you know, double-edged sword, I guess, in that I certainly know at very elite levels, I never felt like the most talented or anywhere near it. So it meant to me always work hard. Like, even talking to teammates now, they'd always say like that they'd tell me that I was really intense at training always. Like, no, I'm relaxed. But I think, like, looking back, it was nearly because that I'd be afraid to be left behind. But I always felt my talent wasn't as natural as a lot of other players, that I needed to work hard to make up for that. And then likewise, you know, sometimes you might be in a team or in an environment that you are maybe someone who's at a higher level, like maybe if I'm training with more kind of rookie players in a drill or something, I know to always keep working on my talent, because someone can outwork. If I'm not working hard, then my talent above someone else can be overshadowed because I'm not working hard enough. So basically it comes down to work hard.
Is there one coach that you could say, yeah, he or she is the one that has influenced me the most in my career? I assume you've had a lot of coaches down the line who's made a good impact.
Yeah, a lot of coaches. Look, I mean, my rugby sevens coach, Anthony Eddy, the director of rugby, he got me to move from Limerick to Dublin, leave a permanent pensionable job. And, you know, through that decision, I got to travel all the way around the world. So that's obviously, he's made the biggest change in my life, as well as my career. But I'd always look back, particularly my time at UL Huskies, and James Weldon, who would have been my Irish under-18 basketball coach as well, and he's a good friend of mine. But I often get asked as well, Jenny, about like professionalism versus, you know, amateur, because I've been in a professional high performance sport, and I've played amateur, very high level sport, and then amateur, you know, club, more relaxed sport. And I always say, look, professionalism isn't just about money and infrastructure and resources. Yes, that's a big part of it, but it's also about kind of, again, coming down to maybe the attitude of the team and the coaches. And I certainly know when we were down at UL Huskies, we were all amateur, we all had our day jobs. There was a very professional attitude and mindset, and that was very much led by James at the time. And it was always about getting better, even when we were kind of going on good running streaks that we weren't going to let rest on our laurels. It was about competitiveness within the team, but also that the team really supported each other, and there was real good clarity about what our roles were within that, and bringing in extra support such like strength and conditioning coaches, sports psychologists, skill acquisition coaches, things that we'd never heard of before, and ably supported by people such as like Phil Deegan in the club in UL Huskies as well, who I have to mention. But I always look back in that squad, I didn't realise at the time how good it was, how much fun we had, and how enjoyable it was to be in such a team that was so similarly minded.
A bunch of messers.
Bunch of messers who got together to decide that, you know, we really want to do something really great in the court, and that was very much spearheaded by James. So I'll always look back in that time and fondly, basically. So yeah, James.
You've buckets of experience, Louise. Would you ever have an interest in going into coaching down the line?
Yeah, I've gotten asked this. Like, I love the idea of coaching, even things like movement ability, movement acquisition. Like I have a master's in sport and exercise medicine. Just drop that in there, just if people want to know. I haven't just been, you know, just playing sevens. And I've been so lucky to be exposed. Like we have speeds, you know, we have time to have specific speed sessions and movement kind of ability sessions up here at sevens with incredible coaches. And like, then when I look back and I look at even, you know, like I love the GA, but I look at senior intercounty male GA players and I'm like, God, he can move a lot better. Like he could step a lot better. Like I would love the idea of almost setting up like a summer camp for kids of all sports to just talk about like, what do you look for when you try to step someone, or, you know, different things like team culture. Like, but this is just pie in the sky dreams by me. I look at someone again, like talk about James and basketball. Like I know it's very intricate and technical details around plays and that. I'm not sure I'd have that level of attention to detail, because at the end of the day, I'm that kid that's just like, okay, can we just go play now? Can we just go 5-5? Yeah. But yeah, I'd certainly like love the idea of giving back, whether it be in Gaelic football, basketball, or rugby down the line.
Well, we look forward to that then. This is a random one now. One thing you always have to have in your fridge, and why?
Greek yogurt. Yeah, Donica, my husband, said we're going to have to start making it soon if I don't
That's another thing to add to the list then, your own yogurt.
Yeah, Greek yogurt. Just with my breakfast, I make overnight oats. I don't know, I suppose nutritionists are always talking about like making sure you get enough protein into your diet. It is like just a little superfood. It's quite filling, and then you can put loads of berries on it and maybe some nuts and some honey and almond butter, and it's a real delicious snack in the evening. So yeah, Greek yogurt.
Caters for everything. I was going to ask who's the most talented teammate across all sports, but I think I'm going to focus on basketball because you played with a lot of unreal players.
Yeah, I did get to play with a lot of unreal players. Look, I think it's someone you've had on very recently, Rachel van der Waal. She obviously went as far as the Olympics, but even to play with her, like she always had a smile on her face as well, but like she worked so hard on offense, on D. She had a shot, she had a drive, she could bring other players into the game. She had a lovely little kind of floating hanging shot that I just admire from a distance, and then realize I should get in and rebound in case it misses. You know, I love setting those screens. But being that decoy runner at all, I don't think after a few years people realize that I wasn't going getting the ball anyway. But no, I think Rachel van der Waal, and it was awesome to train with her. I remember one day getting a really bad black eye off her, like so bad that I ended up getting an X-ray. And she was like, "Oh, Lou, I'm really sorry, but like I was trying to foul her going to the basket and completely pulled her elbow down to my eye, and I think she got an and one out of it as well." And I was like, "Sure, it's my own fault. Like, you know, God. I can't even foul her properly. I deserved it."
Oh God! Toughest opponent, Louise? She could probably fall into that.
Basketball.
Yeah,
basketball. Niamh D, I think, was a really tough opponent from Glanmire. When she was in zone, real physical player again, like just a really, really competitive person as well. So I found her pretty tough battle when you're taking on Niamh D.
There's some nice pictures of you and Niamh D on Sports File, actually. I might include in this. Biggest messer you've come across now on your team or against?
Oh, we could write a book here. I'll go. You know what? There's two Fionas that I'll mention here. There's Fiona Scally and Fiona Lynch, who both played in that UL team. I'd probably go on balance things, giving it to Fiona Lynch, who you would have thought was more mature and settled at that stage within our squad, but she isn't really. She's just a hoot and a ticket and a brilliant person to be around. And even like after I mentioned I got married? I got married in December. I remember picking up, getting my phone the next day, and Fiona had decided to take a load of pictures and videos on my phone that she found at my wedding reception, and I now still have about 6 2-minute long videos of Fiona ripping the piss and talking about how, you know, Kerry's not too bad, but it's not Cork like, you know.
Oh yeah, send them on.
She hasn't changed, clearly, hasn't matured any bit.
Very good. What's your best basketball memory, Louise?
You know, I'm actually going to go all the way back to the school days with this, because I went to a presentation to Stoll, and another important coach in my development was Ger Tarrant, and basketball was a huge part of my secondary school days. In an all-girls school, we used to just train every day in the school hall because we kind of wanted to, and we won the cadet double back in, I don't even know what year, to be honest, in the early noughties anyway. I would have been a year underage, I think, but it was about 4'10", I feel like. I took a bit of a sprout after that, but that was absolutely huge, because I just remember first year, second year, going up on buses to cup games and league games, and you thought it was life, you thought everything relied on winning these games, and it didn't happen. And then we got to cadet and it went really well, and it was just phenomenal memories. And it's with your school friends, it's with your girls that I'm still friends with now, and girls as well that you mightn't see all the time, but you catch up with at Christmas, or every few years you bump into them, and you know, you have that with them, that, oh, do you remember that time we were up in Tala? And again, if you're talking about pictures of me and Niamh Dwyer, you wait till you see the pictures from, I think it was 2002 or something like that. Cadet All Ireland.
And speaking about that time back a couple of years ago, not too long ago, what would be your advice to keep young girls in the sport, or all sports?
Yeah, look, I suppose that sometimes I look back and wonder, was it easy for me, because I lived in the middle of nowhere, and there was so, I think I had a mobile phone, probably had Snake on it and not much else.
Brilliant
and
game. Bring it back.
Yeah, I got so much enjoyment out of just shooting a ball off a wonky turf shed out the back of the house, or kicking a ball off the gable end of the wall that I don't know, was I just always destined to stick with it anyway. But I think like just give them advice that you'll always get more out of it than you give. It's such a healthy thing to be involved in a sport, and particularly team sport. Look, that's where my own passion personally is. I think you learn so much about yourself, you so much about relationships, about you relying on people, about people relying on you, winning, losing, resilience, all these incredible skills that, as I say, I know I've taken beyond any court or football field. And just once you're enjoying it, who cares what anybody else thinks? And it's actually really fun. Like I've been really lucky to have had the opportunity to go to plenty of schools, including my old secondary school and primary school, and talk to the kids there. And I have a little presentation, and what I'll put up is a picture of me like at an award ceremony, looking all glammed up, and then I'll put up about 6 action photos, which, I mean, you're laughing, but I mean, I should be getting prizes for my action photos. I've been asked, have I been badly interfered with, or I gotten a leg broken or something, because my face looks bad and all I'm doing is running with a ball. And I'll put them up and I'll say, look, this is me, and that you can be both. You can dress up and do the award ceremony, and you can also have those fierce, ridiculous action photos. And I used to hate if Irish rugby and then tweet them and put them up, and now I'm like hilarious, like this is brilliant. Like I'll see how many reactions and messages I'll get about this now. And yeah, just that you can be both. And if you are sporty, stick with it, because you're going to get so much more out of it at the end of the day than you could ever put in.
And you could travel the world like yourself and see all
absolutely places. I think more and more now there's more and more opportunities for girls as well, which is brilliant. There's more and more teams that you don't have to be playing with the boys all the time. And even like, I know certainly in a sport like rugby, a lot of people don't take it up until they go to college. So you don't even have to have played it all the way up. So just, if there is something that you'd like to try as well, give it a go. What's stopping you?
And finally, what's next? Is there any sport you want to try your hat at that you haven't tried already? Where are we going to see you next, Louise?
I'd say the knees are only able for a game of golf now at this stage. No, look, I'm really looking forward to getting back playing club, everything. Anyone that'll have me, any 5-a-side, just give me a call. Tiddlywinks, I'll do it. I'm certainly not ready to fully retire at all. No, I would, if I was a bit younger, and maybe not as settled down, I would have liked to have given the women's AFL a go, because I think it's kind of between rugby sevens and intercounty football. So I definitely would have, and I enjoy like Australia. It's a very nice place.
Still young, you could still go.
Well, I don't know about that, but definitely that would have been something, because again, it's kind of a bit of a hybrid between the two sports, and another sport that's in its infancy and certainly growing. So that would have been fun to try, but I'm just gonna settle down with my Zimmer frame now and see what a few clubs take me on.
Well, look, we'll look forward to keeping an eye and seeing where you go next. Louise, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me tonight at Behind the Ball.
Not a bother, Jenny. Thanks very
much.
Fair
play to you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.